Whilst everybody has to start somewhere, what do we do about, quote, masters that don't know the basics? The short answer, put them to the test and then help them improve. A couple of months ago, I posted a prompt online. I said, hey, do you have any questions about Scrum? If so, ask away in the comments below and I'll respond in a new thread. So here's a tough question from Thomas. Whilst everybody has to start somewhere, what do we do about, quote, masters that don't know the basics? Why is this even a question? Well, because of the word master. The word is problematic in at least two ways. One, it's possible to innocently misunderstand the label and think that a Scrum Master is to be an authoritative leader of the Scrum team. That is not the case. The intent is that they are a servant leader, and I'll get back to that. And it's also possible to willfully misrepresent the label. And this is done by people who like to weaponize language and advance a kind of cynical worldview that people are ineradicably stuck in a victim-oppressor relationship in this world. And so the word master conjures up images of slavery, and people draw false equivalencies between slavery and micromanagement. Now, micromanagement is terrible, but one's path to escape micromanagement is entirely different than one's path to escape a regime of slavery. To argue that these things are somehow equivalent is disrespectful of the plight of slaves in this world. Now, that's my opinion, but if that word bothers you or others that you work with, please know that there's no rule that you have to call the person Scrum Master. Choose a new job title. Scrum Virtuoso, Wizard, Ace, Scholar, whatever floats your boat. The Scrum Master label has always intended to mean mastery of Scrum. The authors of Scrum, and I believe that their intent matters, so I'll be respectful of their intent. They've always maintained that a Scrum Master is much like a master of ceremonies. And if any of you have been to more than one wedding in your lifetime, you know that MCs are not always masterful. Sometimes they're downright novice and cringeworthy, but other times they are admirable, respectful, masterful. So that's why this word is a problem. And the problem is made worse by the sheer number of people who carry that label on their resume. Since roughly 2003, the authors of Scrum and others who they've approved have been teaching people about Scrum. And at the end of a 2-day training course, people receive a certification declaring that they are now a Scrum Master. The certifications are perhaps badly named because they indicate only that a person has completed 2 days of training. But fast forward 20 years and hundreds of thousands of people have resumes that include these sorts of certifications. And there are thousands of hiring managers that think that these certifications indicate mastery of Scrum, which they don't. So with hindsight, maybe this should have been done differently, but here we are. And Thomas has asked a great question. What can be done with people who wish to be a Scrum Master, but they don't know the basics? I suppose if you're asking the question, then I'll presume that you know the basics, and probably more. You know enough to discern the difference between a hack and the real thing. My advice? Put them to the test, and then help them improve. The trouble is, how does one test a Scrum Master? Okay, I can think of a few ways. 1, ask a team to interview them. 2, ask the person to explain Scrum. And I don't mean ask them, how is Scrum a silver bullet for my company? It's not. You'll just get talking points and slogans, twice the work in half the time, and transform the world of work and all that jazz. Rather, ask them something like, why is Scrum designed the way that it is? Like, ask them to explain the parts of Scrum and how each part intends to increase transparency, enrich the feedback between end users and the developers, and increase the frequency of releases of small batches of high quality product. Ultimately, what you're looking for is a deep understanding of iterative and incremental development practices and a commitment to teaming and self-management. I should add, I believe the choice of whether to hire a Scrum Master and which one to hire is a team's decision to make. I mean, if we subscribe to the principle that teams are self-managing, then whether to practice Scrum is their choice. And who will be Scrum Master in their team is also their choice. Maybe they ought to invite said Scrum Master to join them for a few sprints. Sign a contract for a few weeks and see how it goes. Or hire them and use the probationary period as intended. Use that time to evaluate their suitability. And if that sounds crazy or impossible in your company, then let me guess, you have an HR department that is allergic to these kinds of ideas. And if that's the case, maybe hiring a Scrum Master isn't your biggest problem. Thanks for the question, Thomas. I hope this was helpful, or at least interesting. And for those of you watching, thanks for tuning in.